You know, after Robert and I had all the excitement with my father and his classmate, um, it was pretty loud. You could feel the concussions. We were not close enough to see all the actual explosion, but you could feel the concussion, and we certainly saw and heard the anti-aircraft fire. We had a banyan tree beside our house, a big one, and I climbed up and climbed onto the roof and sat on the peak of the roof, much to the consternation of my mother. But she was just old enough and not agile enough that she couldn't climb and come after me, so I stayed there. Uh, the really peak of it all was I was on the roof when I'm sure it was the Arizona that I saw that huge explosion. You know, the famous picture of the explosion coming up out of the ship when the ammunition blew. Um, and I was there and kind of calmed down. An hour or so later, give or take, um, all of a sudden there was this, oh, and this whole second wave came up over the mountains from the backside, what we call the backside of the island, and came right down over us and went swooping in. Very plainly visible. The meatball was very, very visible on the aircraft. Um, and somebody must have jetsoned the bomb. I can't imagine that they dropped it on purpose, but it was in a vacant lot uh, about a block away, and that also got my mother rather upset. But that was all. That's the closest anything ever came to us that I know of, and so it was kind of a non-happening in the exact location, but it was really wild. And as I said earlier, all of a sudden our world changed. Complete blackout. And if I'm sure you all realize there was no such thing as air conditioning, so you had to make up your mind. You were either going to have lights in the house and therefore black curtains and steaminess and hot, or you were going to leave your house open, but you couldn't do anything. You know, you had to, so my mother chose to, since she liked hot weather anyway, my mother chose to put the curtains up, so we were hot as a fire most of the time. Very, very disrupting in terms of family life and everything else. You have to understand, you know, everybody says, why weren't you frightened? You don't understand the difference in the lives that we lead. You people who are 70 years of age or younger, you've grown up with violence and you've had TV, you've had horrible movies, lots of war movies. Our war was once a week in the Warner Pathé News if we got there in time to see it before our weekly serial came on. No TV, nothing. Our war consisted of, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is Edward R. Murrow in London, in the middle of the Blitz. And you could hear the bombs going off in the background. But that was our war. We had no conception of the bestiality and the destruction and the agony that goes along with the violence that, unfortunately, you young people have grown up with, and you take it as second nature. And you also have some idea from watching it, the agony. It was all up to our imagination. Remember, the worst thing we ever saw was Roy Rogers just shoot some guy, and he'd fall over dead, but there was no blood. He just fell over dead. And so it was just entirely different. We didn't even know enough to be afraid, I guess is my point.